The jet rolled to a stop with a soft shudder, tires sighing against the runway like they were tired too. Daniel sat still even after the engines powered down. No applause. No chatter. Just the low hum of a private cabin settling into silence. He liked it that way. His phone vibrated in his hand. He glanced down. 3 missed calls. All from Lauren. Daniel locked the screen without listening to the messages. If it was urgent, she'd text. Lauren always texted when she wanted something documented. Calls were for pressure. For tone. For control. He slid the phone into his jacket pocket and stood, shoulders rolling slightly as he grabbed his overnight bag. Outside, the air was cool and faintly metallic, the kind of San Francisco morning that smelled like fog and pavement. A driver waited near the stairs, tablet in hand, polite smile ready. No photographers. No assistants. Daniel had insisted on that years ago. The more money he made, the quieter he wanted his arrivals to be. Attention felt like debt. Like something that would have to be paid back later. The car merged into traffic, passing familiar stretches of highway. Daniel watched the city slide by through tinted glass. Billboards. Overpasses. Palm trees that never quite looked natural, like they'd been planted for decoration and forgotten. He'd been gone 8 months. Toronto. Zurich. Singapore. Back and forth until every hotel room started to feel the same. Neutral. Temporary. Safe. Straight home, sir? The driver asked. Daniel opened his mouth, then paused. Take me to Seabrook, he said. The driver hesitated, just a flicker. Seabrook, sir? Yes. No explanation followed. Daniel didn't offer one. Seabrook wasn't on his usual route anymore, and that was exactly why he needed to go. The closer they got, the quieter Daniel became. His knee bounced once, then stopped. He pressed his thumb against the window, feeling the faint vibration of the car. A grounding habit he'd picked up years ago without realizing it. When the car finally slowed, Daniel's stomach tightened. The house stood exactly where it always had, tucked behind a low fence on Willow Bend Drive. Same shape. Same roofline. But something was off. The yard was trimmed too neatly, edges sharp like they'd been measured with a ruler. The old flowering bushes were gone. In their place, smooth gray stone lined the walkway. Stone didn't wilt. Stone didn't need care. Daniel stepped out and paid the driver, then stood at the curb longer than necessary. He noticed the security camera mounted above the porch, angled downward like an unblinking eye. That was new. He reached for the gate latch, hesitated, then pushed it open. The hinges didn't squeak anymore. Someone had oiled them. The front door opened before he could knock. A young woman stood there, early 20s maybe, wearing a neat uniform. Her expression was polite but blank, the kind of face people practiced in customer-facing jobs. Yes, she said. I'm looking for Evelyn, Daniel replied. The woman frowned slightly, then shook her head. She doesn't live here anymore. The words landed too easily. Like she'd said them before. Daniel blinked. What do you mean? She moved out, the woman said. About 6 months ago. For a moment, Daniel thought he'd misheard. His ears rang faintly like pressure change on a plane. Moved where? He asked. I don't have that information, she said. Then after a beat, Mrs. Rothman would know. Something cold slid down Daniel's spine. Thank you, he said, and stepped past her before she could object. The inside of the house barely resembled the place he remembered. The walls were white now. The furniture minimal and expensive looking, all clean lines and glass surfaces. No throw blankets. No framed photos on side tables. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner instead of laundry soap. Lauren stood by the kitchen island, phone in hand, perfectly composed. Daniel, she said. You're early. Where is Evelyn? He asked. Lauren exhaled, already irritated. We've talked about this. No, Daniel said. We haven't. She left, Lauren replied. It wasn't working. Working how? Lauren set her phone down slowly. She was forgetting things, leaving burners on, misplacing items. It became unsafe. Daniel stared at her. So you decided for her? I handled it, Lauren said. Like an adult. That word. Handled. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. Where is she? Lauren's eyes flicked away. She's somewhere appropriate. Take me there. Lauren laughed softly like he'd made a joke. You just landed. Can we not do this right now? Take me there, Daniel repeated. The room felt suddenly smaller. The hum of the refrigerator sounded louder than it should have. Lauren grabbed her keys with a sharp motion. Fine. But don't act shocked when you see what I've been dealing with. As they walked out, Daniel glanced once more around the house. At the empty corners. The erased warmth. The silence that felt too deliberate. If you're still here, still listening, you already know this isn't just a story about money or power. It's about the people who disappear quietly when no one's watching. If stories like that matter to you, staying close might be worth it. The car pulled away from the curb, heading toward a part of the city Daniel rarely visited anymore. And for the first time since landing, he realized something was very wrong, and he was already 6 months too late. The car moved through the city in a way Daniel hadn't experienced in years. Not the smooth glide between airports and glass towers, but a gradual shift. Wide roads narrowing, buildings aging, paint fading. The kind of neighborhoods people passed through without looking. Lauren sat beside him, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. She hadn't spoken since they pulled away from the house. The silence between them wasn't comfortable. It was sharp, heavy, the kind that pressed against the ears. Daniel watched everything through the window. A laundromat with flickering lights. A bus stop crowded with people standing too close to one another. A grocery store with bars on the windows. Each block felt like a reminder of something he'd worked very hard to escape. This isn't necessary, Lauren said finally. Daniel didn't look at her. You already decided what was necessary. She scoffed quietly. You always do this. You disappear for months, then come back and act like everything needs to pause so you can catch up. Daniel turned to her then. You moved her without telling me. I told you she was struggling. You told me she misplaced her glasses once, he said. That's not the same thing. Lauren's jaw tightened. You weren't here. That doesn't give you ownership over people, Daniel replied. Lauren looked away, focusing on the road ahead. You don't understand what it's like living with someone who's declining. The word hung there. Declining. Daniel felt a surge of irritation. You mean aging? The car slowed as traffic thickened. A siren wailed somewhere nearby, then faded. Lauren sighed. I'm trying to protect our life. Daniel's voice was quiet but firm. Evelyn is part of my life. Lauren didn't respond. They turned onto a side street Daniel didn't recognize. The buildings were low, functional, beige. No trees. No color. A sign came into view. Maplewood Transitional Living. Daniel read it twice. Transitional, he said. To what? Lauren shrugged. Stability. The car pulled into the parking lot. Half full. No security gate. No flowers. Just a concrete walkway and automatic doors that opened with a dull hiss. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and something overcooked. A television murmured from a common room somewhere down the hall. Daniel could hear it before he saw it. Laugh track too loud, timing slightly off. Lauren walked ahead, heels clicking sharply against the tile. She gave her name at the desk. The receptionist nodded without looking up, fingers moving across a keyboard like this was routine. That bothered Daniel more than anything. Routine meant this happened often. They walked down a long hallway lined with framed posters, generic landscapes, motivational quotes printed in soft fonts. Daniel noticed how none of them showed people. Just empty paths, empty beaches, empty roads. Wait here, Lauren said. I'll get her. No, Daniel replied. I'm coming. Lauren hesitated, then waved him forward impatiently. They entered the common room. Daniel's eyes scanned the space slowly. A dozen residents sat scattered around, some watching television, some staring at the floor, a few talking quietly to themselves. The room hummed with small, constant noises, chairs shifting, a cough, the rattle of ice in a plastic cup. Then he saw her. Evelyn sat near the window, light spilling across her lap. She was smaller than he remembered. Not physically exactly, but like she was folding inward. Her hands were clasped tightly, fingers twisting together. Her cardigan hung loosely from her shoulders. Daniel stopped walking. Lauren said her name first. Evelyn. Evelyn looked up slowly. Her eyes searched, unfocused for a moment, then settled. "Oh," she said softly. "Danny." The sound of his childhood name hit him harder than the flight ever could. Daniel crossed the room quickly and crouched in front of her. He noticed things all at once. The dryness of her skin, the way her shoes didn't quite fit, the faint tremor in her hands. "What are you doing here?" he asked gently. She smiled, tentative. "Your wife said it was best." Lauren folded her arms. She agreed. No one forced her. Evelyn nodded. "I didn't want to cause trouble." Daniel swallowed. "You've never caused trouble." Evelyn's smile faded slightly. "I forget things now. It's easier if someone else decides." That sentence broke something open inside him. He stood slowly and turned to Lauren. "You put her somewhere she feels like she doesn't get a say." "This isn't a punishment," Lauren said sharply. "It's supervision." Evelyn flinched at the word. Daniel noticed. And for the first time, anger replaced confusion. Because whatever Lauren thought she was doing, it wasn't kindness. And Daniel was starting to understand that this place wasn't temporary at all. Daniel stayed standing while Lauren stepped aside to speak with a staff member. He didn't hear the words, only the tone, efficient, clipped, practiced. Like this was a transaction, not a person. Evelyn watched him from her chair. "You look tired," she said. Daniel forced a small smile and sat down beside her. The chair creaked under his weight. "Long flight." "You always hated flying," she said. "Said it made your ears feel like they were underwater." He blinked. "You remember that?" She smiled again, a little brighter this time. Something stick. That made his chest ache, because it meant other things didn't. He looked around the room more closely now. The scuffed floors. The plastic cups stacked on a tray. The way a man across the room kept rubbing the same spot on the table over and over, like he was trying to erase something invisible. "How long have you been here?" Daniel asked. Evelyn hesitated. "A little while." Lauren reappeared, her expression tight. 6 months, she said. "That's not a little while." Evelyn's shoulders slumped. "I didn't want to complain." Daniel's hands curled into fists. 6 months. Half a year of missed dinners, missed conversations, missed moments he could never get back. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked Evelyn softly. She looked down at her hands. "Your wife said you were busy, that you didn't need worrying." Daniel turned slowly toward Lauren. "You told her not to call me." "I told her not to interrupt you," Lauren replied. "There's a difference." "There really isn't," he said. Lauren sighed like she was the only adult in the room. "Daniel, listen. You've built a life. A demanding one." She was becoming unpredictable. Evelyn stiffened. "I'm not dangerous." "No one said that," Lauren snapped. Daniel leaned forward, voice low. "But you thought it." Lauren met his gaze without flinching. "I thought she didn't belong in our house anymore." The word "our" felt like a line drawn in chalk. Evelyn looked between them, confusion creeping back into her eyes. "I can leave if that helps," she said quickly. "I don't need much." Daniel shook his head. "No, you're not leaving." Lauren's voice sharpened. "Daniel." He stood and faced her fully now. "You don't get to decide who belongs in my life." Lauren laughed once, hollow. "She's not your mother." The room seemed to go quiet. Even the television's laugh track faded into the background. Evelyn flinched. Not dramatically. Just a small movement like she'd been expecting the blow. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. She raised me, he said. She fostered you, Lauren replied. That's different. Daniel looked at Evelyn then. At the woman who had packed his lunches with notes written in careful handwriting. Who had worked nights and still woken up early to make sure he caught the bus. Who had shown up to every school meeting even when no one else did. If that wasn't motherhood, Daniel didn't know what was. Evelyn stood slowly, her knees unsteady. It's all right, she said, trying to soothe the situation she didn't create. Lauren's right. I was supposed to be temporary. The word landed heavy. Temporary. Daniel's throat tightened. Who told you that? Evelyn hesitated, then spoke quietly. The paperwork. Lauren folded her arms. We're not doing this here. But Daniel already was. He turned toward the hallway. I want to see her file. Lauren stepped in front of him. You're not authorized. I'm her family, Daniel said. Lauren scoffed. Legally? Barely. That was when Daniel noticed something else. A man in scrubs standing near the doorway watching. Not intervening. Just observing. Daniel addressed him. Excuse me. I want to understand why she's here. The man hesitated, then nodded. We can talk privately. Lauren opened her mouth to protest, but Daniel was already walking. In the small office the air felt stale. Papers stacked neatly on a desk. A framed certificate on the wall. The man introduced himself, explained procedures, assessments, evaluations. She was admitted voluntarily, he said. Voluntarily, Daniel repeated. Based on what information? The man glanced at a folder. Reports of memory lapses. Safety concerns. From who? The man paused. From Mrs. Rothman. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. So no independent assessment before she was placed? He asked. There was an initial screening, the man replied carefully. But families often. She's not confused, Daniel cut in. She's scared. The man didn't argue. When Daniel returned to the common room, Evelyn was sitting alone again. Lauren stood near the window, tapping her foot. Daniel walked past Lauren without a word and knelt in front of Evelyn. I'm going to fix this, he said quietly. Evelyn searched his face, hope and fear tangled together. Promise? Daniel nodded. I promise. Behind him, Lauren's voice was tight. Daniel, don't make this bigger than it is. But it already was. Because Daniel wasn't just realizing what Lauren had done. He was starting to understand how carefully it had been done. They left Maplewood without another word spoken in the car. The automatic doors slid shut behind them with a soft thump that sounded final, like something being sealed. Daniel watched the building shrink in the side mirror, a dull block of concrete swallowing light. Lauren stared straight ahead. Traffic was thicker now. Late afternoon. Commuters impatient, horns sharp and quick. Daniel felt every stop and start in his chest, like his body was mirroring the road. You embarrassed me back there, Lauren said finally. Daniel didn't answer. I'm serious, she continued. Questioning staff. Making a scene. You put her in a facility without telling me, he said. If anyone was embarrassed, it wasn't you. Lauren laughed under her breath. You always need a villain. Daniel turned to her slowly. You hid her from me. I managed a situation, Lauren replied. You weren't available. Daniel shook his head. You decided I didn't deserve to know. Lauren's fingers tightened around her purse strap. You disappear for months. What was I supposed to do? Put my life on pause? Daniel leaned back, staring at the ceiling. So you erased mine instead. The rest of the drive passed in strained silence. When they pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly as it had that morning. Perfect. Controlled. Empty. Inside, Lauren kicked off her shoes and poured herself a glass of water, drinking it too fast. Daniel stood near the doorway, scanning the room again, noticing new details. The lack of photographs. The absence of anything that suggested memory or history. Why did you change everything? He asked. Lauren frowned. Change what? The house, Daniel said. It doesn't feel like a place people live anymore. It's called updating, Lauren replied. Not everyone wants to live surrounded by clutter. Daniel's jaw tightened. You call her things clutter now? Lauren slammed the glass down. Don't twist my words. Daniel walked into the living room, stopping near the empty fireplace. Where are her things? Lauren hesitated. Just for a second. I donated most of them. Daniel turned slowly. You what? She didn't need them, Lauren said defensively. And honestly, Daniel, they weren't exactly valuable. Daniel felt heat rush to his face. They were hers. Lauren crossed her arms. She wasn't coming back. That sentence landed like a verdict. Daniel stared at her. You decided that. Lauren's voice hardened. She wasn't your responsibility. Daniel's voice dropped. She raised me. Lauren scoffed. She was paid to take you in. The room went still. Daniel took a step closer. You have no idea what you're talking about. Lauren met his gaze. I know you owe her loyalty. I get that. But there are boundaries. Boundaries don't involve throwing someone away, Daniel said. Lauren exhaled sharply. You're romanticizing it. She was slipping. She needed structure. And you decided the structure was removing her from her home. Our home, Lauren corrected. Daniel laughed once, bitter. You mean the home she kept running while we were building our careers? Lauren's eyes flashed. This isn't about race if that's where you're going. Daniel paused. He hadn't said the word. The fact that she brought it up first told him everything. You noticed, he said quietly. Lauren stiffened. I noticed reality. Reality, Daniel repeated. Or convenience? Lauren shook her head, frustration spilling over. You don't see it. Everywhere we go, people already assume things about us. About you. About me. Having her there just what? Daniel asked. Lauren looked away. Complicated things. Daniel felt something inside him fracture. She made things real. Lauren turned back to him. I didn't sign up to live with a reminder of where you came from. The words echoed. Daniel stepped back like he'd been struck. He thought of Evelyn folding laundry late at night, humming softly. Of her sitting at the kitchen table, waiting up for him even when he came home after midnight. You're ashamed? He said. Lauren bristled. I'm practical. Daniel shook his head. You're afraid. Lauren's voice dropped. Of what? Of not being enough, Daniel said. So you remove anything that reminds you I existed before you. Lauren stared at him, lips pressed tight. Where are her things now? Daniel asked. Lauren hesitated again. Some storage unit. Which one? Lauren sighed. I'll have someone look it up. No, Daniel said. You'll tell me. Lauren rolled her eyes. Why does it matter? Daniel's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. Because I'm bringing her home. Lauren laughed, sharp and incredulous. You can't be serious. Daniel met her gaze. I already am. Lauren's smile faded. For the first time since his return, Daniel saw something like fear flicker across her face. Because this wasn't a disagreement anymore. It was a line being drawn. And once crossed, there would be no easy way back. Lauren didn't respond right away. She walked past Daniel and into the kitchen, opening a cabinet with unnecessary force. Plates clinked softly. She poured herself another glass of water, slower this time, like she was buying herself a moment. Daniel stayed where he was. I said I'm bringing her home, he repeated, not louder, not softer. Just steady. Lauren turned, leaning against the counter. And I said that's not happening. The certainty in her voice was new. It wasn't irritation or defensiveness. It was possession. You don't get veto power over this, Daniel said. Lauren smiled faintly. This is my house too. Daniel nodded. That's true. She straightened, encouraged. Then start acting like it. Daniel took a breath. But it's her home first. Lauren's smile vanished. That's not how marriage works. No, Daniel said. That's how decency works. Lauren shook her head, almost laughing. You're emotional. Jet-lagged. You'll see reason after you sleep. I've never been clearer, Daniel replied. Lauren stepped closer, lowering her voice. You don't understand what you're asking for. The staff. The liability. If something happens. Then we deal with it, Daniel said. Together. Like adults. Lauren's eyes hardened. You weren't here when she wandered outside at 2 a.m. Daniel froze. What? She didn't remember where she was, Lauren continued quickly. I found her on the porch in her nightgown. Confused. Daniel studied her face. When did this happen? Lauren hesitated. A few weeks before she left. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. You were in Zurich, she snapped. And you finally sounded settled. I didn't want to drag you back into chaos. Daniel felt the familiar tug of guilt. Lauren knew how to use it. She always had. Did she hurt herself? He asked. No, Lauren said. But she could have. Daniel nodded slowly. So your solution was to remove her entirely? Yes, Lauren said. Before something worse happened. Daniel looked down at the floor, processing. He didn't doubt Evelyn had moments of confusion. He'd noticed little things before, questions repeated, names misplaced. But he also knew fear could look a lot like confusion. Did you ever ask her what she wanted? He asked. Lauren scoffed. She didn't know what she wanted. That's not an answer, Daniel said. Lauren's patience snapped. She wanted to please you. She always has. That doesn't make her capable of deciding what's best. Daniel raised his eyes. And you are. I'm rational, Lauren said. I don't let nostalgia dictate my choices. Daniel stepped closer. You let convenience do it. Lauren's face flushed. You think this is easy for me? I think you made it easy for yourself, Daniel replied. She laughed bitterly. You have no idea what it's like living with someone who reminds you every day that you don't quite belong in your own life. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? Lauren looked away, then back again, eyes sharp. People look at her and make assumptions. About us. About you. About me. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. So this is about appearances. It's about survival, Lauren said. Our world is judgmental. You know that. Daniel shook his head. Evelyn didn't survive so you could curate a lifestyle. Lauren slammed her hand against the counter. I didn't ask for this. The silence afterward was thick. Daniel spoke quietly. Neither did she. Lauren turned away, breathing hard. You're not thinking straight. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in a long while, Daniel said. He walked toward the hallway, toward the stairs. Where are you going? Lauren asked. To pack, he replied. Lauren spun around. For what? Daniel stopped at the bottom of the stairs. I'm going to Maplewood tomorrow morning. Lauren's voice rose. You can't just take her out. I can, Daniel said. And I will. Lauren crossed her arms, regaining control. Then I'll call my attorney. Daniel looked back at her, surprised, not at the threat, but at how quickly she reached for it. That fast? He asked. Lauren met his gaze. I protect what's mine. Daniel nodded slowly. So do I. He climbed the stairs, each step heavy, deliberate. In the bedroom, he opened the closet and began pulling out clothes, folding them with care. His hands moved automatically, but his mind was racing. Downstairs, Lauren paced. He could hear her heels against the floor. The low murmur of her voice as she made a call. Daniel paused, listening. Then he heard his name. And another word. Doctor. His hands stilled. Lauren was telling someone something. Something about him. Daniel stood there, holding a shirt he didn't remember buying, and felt a chill crawl up his spine. Because if Lauren was already laying groundwork, then this wasn't just about Evelyn anymore. It was about control. And Daniel had the sudden, sinking feeling that he didn't yet know how far Lauren was willing to go. Daniel didn't sleep. He lay on his back staring at the ceiling while the house settled around him, wood popping softly as temperatures shifted. Every sound felt amplified. A distant car door. The faint buzz of Lauren's phone lighting up on the nightstand she'd taken to sleeping beside, turned face down. He replayed her words over and over. Doctor. Protect what's mine. By morning, the decision had hardened into something solid. At 6:30, Daniel was dressed and downstairs. He moved quietly, habit from years of early flights. He poured coffee and didn't drink it. The smell alone made his stomach turn. Lauren appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, already polished, already guarded. "You're really doing this," she said. Daniel picked up his keys. "I said I would." She crossed her arms. "I called ahead." That made him pause. "Called who?" "Maplewood," Lauren replied calmly. "They're aware of your emotional state." Daniel looked at her. "You told them I'm unstable." "I told them you're under a lot of pressure," she said. "Which is true." Daniel let out a slow breath. "You're trying to make me look unreliable." Lauren shrugged. "I'm being responsible." Daniel shook his head. "You're trying to make decisions permanent." Lauren stepped closer. "Daniel, think about this. If you take her out and something happens, it's on you. Every fall, every mistake, every lapse." Daniel met her gaze. "I'm not afraid of responsibility." She smiled faintly. "You should be." He didn't reply. He walked past her and out the door. The morning air was sharp, clean. The kind that made everything feel more real. As he drove, Daniel noticed how his hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Not fear. Adrenaline. At Maplewood, the parking lot looked the same as yesterday. Too quiet. Too orderly. Inside, the receptionist greeted him with a different expression this time. Cautious. Alert. "Mr. Rothman," she said. "We weren't expecting you alone." "That's all right," Daniel replied. "I'm here for Evelyn Brooks." The receptionist hesitated. "There are some concerns." "I'm sure there are," Daniel said. "I'd like to see her." A supervisor appeared moments later, clipboard in hand. A woman in her 40s, kind eyes, practiced tone. "Mr. Rothman," she said. "We need to talk before you interact with the resident." Daniel followed her into a small office. Same stale air. Same carefully neutral walls. "We've received communication from Mrs. Rothman," the supervisor said gently. "She expressed concern that you may be acting impulsively." Daniel leaned forward. "Did she mention why?" "She said you've been under a great deal of stress," the woman replied, "and that Mrs. Brooks' condition may be more advanced than you realize." Daniel nodded slowly. "Did she provide medical records?" "No," the supervisor admitted, "but families often." "She's not family," Daniel said firmly. "I am." The supervisor studied him for a moment, then sighed. "We can arrange a reassessment. But that takes time." "How much?" Daniel asked. "Days. Possibly weeks." Daniel felt frustration rise, but he kept his voice even. "May I speak with Evelyn in the meantime?" The supervisor hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. Evelyn was in her room this time. A narrow bed. A small dresser. A window that faced a brick wall. She smiled when she saw him, relief softening her face. "You came back." "I told you I would," Daniel said, sitting beside her. She reached for his hand, holding it like she was afraid it might disappear. "Your wife was upset." "I know," Daniel said. "She said I was causing trouble again," Evelyn whispered. Daniel swallowed. "You're not." Evelyn looked at him closely. "You're angry." "I'm determined," he replied. She squeezed his hand. "I don't want to ruin your marriage." Daniel shook his head. "You're not the one doing that." A knock sounded at the door. The supervisor again. Time. Daniel stood reluctantly. I'll be back tomorrow, he told Evelyn. We're not done. She nodded, eyes shiny. I trust you. As Daniel walked out, he caught a glimpse of a man in a suit speaking quietly with the receptionist. The man looked up, meeting Daniel's gaze briefly. Recognition flickered. Not personal. Professional. The man glanced down at a folder with Daniel's name on it. And in that moment, Daniel realized Lauren hadn't just made calls. She'd started a paper trail. And paper, Daniel knew, could trap a person far more effectively than walls ever could. Daniel noticed the man in the suit again as he signed out at the front desk. Mid-40s, neat haircut, shoes polished to a mirror shine. Not Maplewood staff. Not a visitor. He stood too still, like someone trained to wait. When Daniel passed, the man gave a polite nod. Neutral. Professional. Daniel returned the nod and walked out without breaking stride. But his mind stayed inside the building. The drive back felt longer than it should have. Traffic crawled. The radio droned on about market swings and weather advisories. Daniel turned it off and drove in silence, replaying every detail of Evelyn's room. The narrow bed. The brick wall. The way she'd said I trust you like it was both a gift and a risk. By the time he pulled into the driveway, his jaw hurt from clenching. Lauren's car was already there. Inside, the house felt tense, like it had absorbed the arguments and was holding on to them. Lauren sat at the dining table with her laptop open, a stack of folders beside her. She didn't look up when Daniel entered. You went anyway, she said. Yes, Daniel replied. Lauren typed for a moment longer, then closed the laptop slowly. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Daniel dropped his keys on the counter. You started this. Lauren stood. I'm trying to finish it. They faced each other across the room. The distance between them felt measured, intentional. I spoke with Maplewood, Lauren said. They're reviewing her placement. Daniel laughed once, humorless. After your call? Lauren's lips pressed together. They're professionals. You told them I was unstable. I told them you were emotional, she corrected. Which you are. Daniel stepped closer. You're setting me up. Lauren tilted her head. For what? For not being believed. Lauren crossed her arms. You're imagining threats where there aren't any. Daniel looked past her at the wall where a family photo used to hang. Why are you doing this? Lauren's composure slipped just slightly. Because I'm tired of competing with a woman who doesn't even understand the rules of the world we live in. Daniel stared at her. She raised me. And she reminds me every day that no matter what I achieve, I'll always be an outsider in your story, Lauren shot back. Daniel frowned. That's not true. Lauren laughed sharply. Isn't it? You talk about her like she's sacred. Like she saved you. She did, Daniel said simply. Lauren's eyes flashed. And where does that leave me? The question hung there raw and unguarded. Daniel softened slightly. It was never a competition. It was for me, Lauren said. Silence settled between them again. Daniel exhaled. I'm filing to have her reassessed independently. Lauren's expression changed. You can't do that without consulting me. I already did, Daniel said. Lauren took a step back. You went behind my back. Daniel nodded. Like you did to me. Lauren shook her head, voice rising. You're blowing this up. No, Daniel replied. I'm finally looking at it. Lauren turned away, pacing. Do you know how people look at us? You? A billionaire with a foster mother living in his house like a relic. Daniel felt something cold wash over him. You're ashamed of her. Lauren stopped pacing. I'm realistic. Daniel shook his head slowly. You don't erase people to manage optics. Lauren's voice dropped. You erase liabilities. Daniel stared at her. Is that how you see me? Lauren didn't answer. That was answer enough. Daniel picked up his phone and scrolled, then stopped. Did you hire someone? Lauren's head snapped up. What? At Maplewood, there was a man, in a suit, watching. Lauren blinked once. You're paranoid. Did you? Daniel repeated. Lauren hesitated. A fraction too long. Just someone advising me, she said. In case things get messy. Daniel's stomach dropped. Advising you about what? Lauren looked him straight in the eye. About protecting myself. Daniel took a slow step back. From me? Lauren didn't deny it. That night, Daniel sat alone in his office, surrounded by old boxes he'd never unpacked after their last move. He opened one at random. Inside were notebooks, old school papers, and at the bottom, a stack of letters tied with string. Evelyn's handwriting. His chest tightened as he untied the string. The first envelope was addressed to him, dated 18 years ago. And as Daniel stared at it, unopened, he felt the weight of something he was never meant to know pressing against him. Because whatever was inside that envelope, Lauren had never wanted him to see it. And suddenly Daniel understood. This wasn't just about removing Evelyn. It was about controlling the story of his life itself. Daniel sat at the desk long after the house had gone quiet. The lamp cast a soft yellow circle over the papers, leaving the corners of the room in shadow. Outside, the wind pushed gently against the windows, carrying the distant sound of traffic and a siren that faded almost as soon as it appeared. The world kept moving. Inside the room, everything felt paused. He picked up the envelope. The paper was thinner than he expected, worn soft at the edges, like it had been handled many times. His name was written in careful ink. Not rushed. Not sloppy. The handwriting was steady, deliberate. Evelyn's. Daniel turned it over once, then again. The seal had never been broken. That realization alone made his throat tighten. This letter had survived moves, renovations, years of silence. It had been nearby the entire time. He opened it slowly. The paper inside was folded neatly, creases pressed flat as if she'd wanted it to last. Danny, the letter began. Just that. No greeting. No apology. Daniel swallowed. She wrote about small things first. About how she hoped he was eating well. About how proud she felt watching him build a life that didn't look anything like the one he came from. Her words were simple, almost plain, but they carried a weight that made his chest ache. Then the tone shifted. She wrote about the day she met his biological mother. About the hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. About a promise made quietly without witnesses. Daniel's hand trembled as he read. Evelyn hadn't been assigned to him randomly. She had requested him. Specifically, she had known his mother. Had known she was running out of chances. Had stepped in when the system would have swallowed him whole. I didn't foster you by accident, she wrote. I chose you. Daniel leaned back in the chair, breath shallow. She explained why she'd never told him. How she was afraid of becoming smaller in his eyes if he thought she was obligated instead of willing. How she wanted him to believe he was wanted, not rescued. Tears blurred the words. At the bottom of the page, one final line. I've always been your mother in every way that mattered. Even if the world never wrote it down. Daniel pressed the letter to his chest and closed his eyes. Memories rushed in uninvited. Evelyn teaching him to ride a bike, jogging beside him even when her breath gave out. Evelyn sitting in a folding chair at school events, clapping louder than anyone else. Evelyn standing between him and a social worker once, her voice calm but unyielding. He hadn't imagined that love. Someone knocked softly on the office door. Daniel stiffened. Lauren didn't wait for an answer. She stepped inside, already scanning the room. Her eyes landed on the open letter in his hands. What's that? She asked. Daniel didn't hide it. Something you didn't want me to read. Lauren's expression hardened. You went through my things? Daniel stood slowly. You went through my life. Lauren crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. He held up the letter. You intercepted this. Lauren hesitated. Just long enough. That was years ago, she said. It didn't matter anymore. It mattered to me, Daniel replied. It explains everything. Lauren scoffed. Explains what? That she's emotionally manipulative. Daniel's voice dropped. Don't. She wanted to secure her place, Lauren continued. You think this was selfless? She attached herself to you. Daniel felt anger flare, sharp and immediate. She raised me without asking for anything. Lauren laughed. And now you're willing to tear apart your marriage for her. Daniel stared at her. You tore it apart when you decided who deserved to stay. Lauren stepped closer. You're not thinking clearly. No, Daniel said. I finally am. Lauren glanced at the letter again. You don't even know if that's true. Daniel froze. What do you mean? Lauren shrugged lightly. Memories fade. Stories change. Daniel felt a chill. Are you saying she lied? I'm saying you don't know, Lauren replied. And you're letting sentiment cloud your judgment. Daniel shook his head. You're afraid of what this means. Lauren's jaw tightened. I'm afraid of losing control. The honesty startled them both. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Daniel folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. I'm having Evelyn reassessed tomorrow. Independently. Lauren's eyes widened slightly. You can't. I already scheduled it, Daniel said. Lauren's voice sharpened. You're making a mistake. Daniel met her gaze. Then it'll be mine to make. Lauren turned toward the door, stopping just before leaving. If you do this, she said quietly, things will get very complicated. Daniel watched her go. Alone again, he sat back down, letter in hand, heart pounding. For the first time, he wasn't just fighting for Evelyn's place in his home. He was fighting for the truth of who he was. And somewhere deep down, he knew Lauren wouldn't stop quietly. Morning arrived without softness. The sky was pale and gray, the kind of color that made time feel suspended. Daniel stood in the kitchen with a mug of coffee he hadn't touched, staring at the faint reflection of himself in the dark window. His face looked older somehow, sharper. Like a man who had crossed an invisible line and couldn't step back. Footsteps approached behind him. Evelyn. She moved slowly now, but with quiet dignity. Her sweater hung loosely on her shoulders, sleeves rolled once at the wrists. She stopped when she saw Daniel, her eyes gentle but curious. You're up early, she said. I couldn't sleep, Daniel replied. Neither could she, though she didn't say it. They sat at the table together, the space between them filled with things neither knew how to name yet. Daniel watched her hands as she wrapped them around her teacup. They were steady. Calm. Not the hands of someone hiding a secret. Lauren told me you're sending someone to evaluate me, Evelyn said softly. Daniel looked up. She told you? Evelyn nodded. Late last night. She was upset. Daniel clenched his jaw. I wanted to tell you myself. I know, Evelyn said. And I understand. That surprised him. You do. She smiled faintly. When people start asking questions, it usually means something important is trying to come back to the surface. Daniel swallowed. I found the letter. Her breath caught almost imperceptibly. You weren't supposed to see that, she whispered. I was, Daniel said. I just didn't know it yet. Evelyn lowered her gaze. I wondered how long Lauren could keep it hidden. So it was true. Daniel felt a mix of relief and anger surge through him. She knew. She found it years ago, Evelyn said. She didn't like what it represented. Daniel exhaled slowly. She made you look unstable. Evelyn reached across the table and touched his hand. She made herself afraid. Daniel squeezed her fingers. I'm not letting this go. Evelyn searched his face. Be careful, Daniel. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house like a warning. Daniel stood. That'll be the evaluator. Evelyn nodded, composed. Then let's tell the truth. The woman who stepped inside introduced herself as Dr. Patel. Her voice was warm, her posture relaxed. She greeted Evelyn first, then Daniel, taking in the house with careful eyes. They sat in the living room. Sunlight crept through the curtains, illuminating dust motes in the air. Dr. Patel asked simple questions at first. How long Evelyn had lived there. What her daily routine looked like. How she felt emotionally. Evelyn answered calmly. Honestly. Daniel watched closely. There was no confusion. No paranoia. No instability. Just memory, clarity, and a quiet sadness that felt rooted in reality, not delusion. Halfway through, Lauren appeared at the edge of the room. I didn't know this was happening today, she said sharply. Daniel didn't look at her. You did. Lauren forced a smile. May I sit in? Dr. Patel glanced at Evelyn. Would that make you uncomfortable? Evelyn paused. A little. Lauren scoffed. See? Paranoia. Daniel stood. That's enough. Dr. Patel raised a hand gently. Let's keep this respectful. Lauren sat anyway, crossing her legs tightly. As the questions continued, Lauren interrupted more than once, correcting Evelyn, reframing her answers, suggesting alternative interpretations. Daniel saw it clearly now. This wasn't concern. It was control. Dr. Patel took notes, her expression neutral. Finally, she closed her notebook. I'll need some time to review everything. But I want to be clear, what I've observed so far does not indicate cognitive impairment. Lauren stiffened. You haven't seen everything. Dr. Patel met her gaze. I've seen enough to know when someone is being dismissed unfairly. Silence dropped hard into the room. Lauren stood abruptly. This is a waste of time. She turned toward Daniel. You're choosing her over your wife. Daniel didn't hesitate. I'm choosing the truth. Lauren's face flushed. You'll regret this. She stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. Evelyn exhaled, shoulders sagging slightly. I'm sorry she's doing this to you. Daniel shook his head. She's doing it to herself. Dr. Patel gathered her things. I'll file my report this evening. After she left, Daniel and Evelyn sat together in silence. I should have told you sooner, Evelyn said quietly. Daniel looked at her. You told me in every way that mattered. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, Lauren was already on the phone, pacing the driveway, her gestures sharp and frantic. Daniel's stomach tightened. Whatever she was planning next wouldn't be small. And this time, the house itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the fallout that was about to come. Lauren didn't come back into the house that night. Daniel watched from the upstairs window as her car pulled out of the driveway, tires crunching over gravel a little harder than necessary. The sound faded, but the tension didn't. It settled into the walls, into the furniture, into the quiet hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Evelyn was already in her room when Daniel went to check on her. The door was half open. She sat on the edge of the bed, folding a cardigan with careful precision, like the act itself was grounding her. She's angry, Evelyn said without looking up. She's scared, Daniel replied. There's a difference. Evelyn glanced at him then. Sometimes there isn't. Daniel leaned against the doorframe. You okay? She nodded. I've lived through worse storms than this. He believed her. And yet, something about the way she avoided his eyes made him uneasy. Later that night, Daniel lay awake beside an empty space in the bed. Lauren hadn't called. Not once. He checked his phone anyway, scrolling through emails instead. One new message caught his eye. From a law firm in downtown Chicago. He opened it. The words were polite, clinical, carefully chosen. But the meaning landed hard. Lauren had requested a formal review of Evelyn's legal status in the household. Specifically, whether continued residence posed emotional or psychological risk to the family. Daniel sat up, heart pounding. She wasn't just lashing out. She was escalating. The next morning, Evelyn was already up, humming softly as she made oatmeal on the stove. The sound felt almost defiant in its normalcy. Daniel didn't mention the email right away. He watched her instead. The way she tasted the oatmeal, added a pinch of cinnamon, stirred slowly. These weren't the habits of someone unraveling. They were the habits of someone holding themselves together. "Daniel," she said gently, sensing him. "What is it?" He slid his phone across the counter. She read the email once. Then again. Her hands trembled slightly as she set the phone down. "So," she said quietly, "she's decided." Daniel's voice was low. "I won't let her push you out." Evelyn gave a small, sad smile. "That's kind. But this isn't just about me." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned off the stove and faced him fully. "Lauren doesn't hate me because I'm confused or old or inconvenient." Daniel waited. "She hates me because I know something she doesn't want known." The words hung there. "What?" he asked. Evelyn hesitated. Her gaze drifted toward the window as if checking who might be listening. "Not yet," she said. "But soon." That answer unsettled him more than any accusation could have. Later that afternoon, Daniel drove into the city to meet his attorney. The office was all glass and steel, sunlight reflecting off polished surfaces. The attorney, a calm man named Robert Klein, listened carefully as Daniel explained everything. "This isn't uncommon," Robert said finally. "When families with assets disagree, mental competence becomes a weapon." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's manipulating the system." "She's trying to," Robert corrected. "That doesn't mean she'll succeed." Daniel leaned forward. "What can she do?" Robert folded his hands. "She can file for a temporary guardianship review. She can request restrictions. She can make your foster mother's life very uncomfortable." Daniel stood abruptly. "Not happening." Robert met his gaze. "Then you need documentation. History. Proof." "Of what?" "Of who Evelyn really is," Robert said. "And who she's always been." That night, Daniel returned home with a strange sense of urgency. He went straight to the storage room in the basement, where old boxes sat untouched for years. Evelyn followed him down the stairs, her steps slow but steady. "You're finally ready," she said. He opened the first box. Photographs spilled out. Old ones. Faded edges. A younger Evelyn stood in front of a modest house, arm around a teenage Daniel. Another showed her at a school event, smiling proudly. "She raised me when no one else wanted the responsibility," Daniel said softly. Evelyn knelt beside him. "And I loved you like my own." He looked at her. "Lauren doesn't see that." "She sees it," Evelyn replied. "That's the problem." They moved through the boxes together. Letters. School reports. Hospital bills Evelyn had quietly paid decades ago. Proof of sacrifices Daniel had been too young to understand at the time. Then Evelyn stiffened. She reached into the bottom of a box and pulled out a thin folder Daniel had never seen before. Her hand shook. "Evelyn," he said. "What is that?" She swallowed. "The reason Lauren is afraid." Daniel took the folder slowly. Inside were documents. Old legal forms. Names he recognized. And one signature that made his breath catch. Lauren's. Dated years earlier. "What did she do?" Daniel whispered. Evelyn closed her eyes. "She thought I was too weak to remember." Upstairs the front door clicked open. Footsteps echoed through the house. Lauren was home. And whatever was written in that folder was about to change everything they thought they knew. Lauren's heels echoed down the hallway before she appeared in the doorway. She stopped short when she saw the basement light on. Daniel stood halfway up the stairs, the folder tucked under his arm. His face gave nothing away, but his chest felt tight, like he was holding back a storm. Lauren glanced from him to Evelyn, who remained seated on the basement step, hands folded, expression unreadable. "What's going on?" Lauren asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. He stepped aside and let her see the open boxes. The photographs. The papers scattered like fragments of a life Lauren had never wanted to acknowledge. "Cleaning," he said finally. Lauren's eyes narrowed. "At night." Evelyn spoke before Daniel could. "Memories don't keep office hours." Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. She walked closer, her gaze sharp now, searching. Then she noticed the folder. Her breath changed. It was subtle, but Daniel caught it. "Where did you get that?" Lauren asked. Evelyn didn't move. "You know where." Lauren laughed, a quick brittle sound. "You shouldn't be digging through things you don't understand." Daniel stepped forward. "I understand enough." Lauren turned to him. "This is private." "Then why is your name on it?" Daniel replied. Silence stretched. The air felt thick, charged. Lauren straightened her shoulders. "That folder doesn't prove anything." Daniel opened it. Slowly. He didn't read aloud yet. He didn't need to. The tension in Lauren's face told him he was standing on solid ground. "These are guardianship documents," he said. "Preliminary filings. Drafts." Lauren crossed her arms. So, Daniel continued, "you tried to have Evelyn declared legally unfit years ago. Quietly. Without my knowledge." "That was precaution," Lauren snapped. She was forgetful even then. Evelyn looked up at her. "I misplaced my keys once." Lauren ignored her. "Daniel, you were busy building your company. Traveling. Someone had to think ahead." Daniel's voice dropped. "You forged my consent." Lauren froze. "That signature," Daniel said, tapping the page. "It looks like mine. But it isn't." Evelyn closed her eyes. Lauren exhaled sharply. "You don't know that." "I do," Daniel replied. "Because I was in Seattle the day this was signed. And because I never would have agreed to this." Lauren's composure cracked just slightly. "You're making this bigger than it is." "No," Daniel said. "You did." Evelyn stood slowly, gripping the railing for support. "I found those papers back then," she said. "I confronted you." Lauren scoffed. "You imagined that conversation." Evelyn met her gaze, steady and calm. "You cried. You told me you were afraid I would take something from you." Daniel's head snapped toward Lauren. "Take what?" Lauren's mouth opened. "Close." "Answer me," Daniel said. Lauren's voice dropped. "Everything." The word landed heavy. "You never wanted me gone because you thought I was unstable," Evelyn continued. "You wanted me gone because I knew what you did. And because I reminded you of who Daniel was before the money." Lauren laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. "That's ridiculous." Daniel stepped closer. "Is it?" Lauren looked at him, then really looked at him like she was recalculating. "You think she's innocent?" she said. "You think she didn't benefit from your success too?" Evelyn's brow furrowed. "I never asked you for anything." "But you stayed," Lauren snapped. "You stayed and people saw you. They talked. They asked questions." Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What questions?" he asked. Lauren hesitated. "Just long enough." Daniel's voice hardened. "What questions, Lauren?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "It does," Evelyn said softly. "Because that's when you went to that attorney. The one who specialized in estates." Daniel turned back to the folder. "You were preparing for a future where Evelyn couldn't speak for herself." Lauren's eyes flashed. "I was protecting our family." "No," Daniel said. "You were protecting control." Lauren's face twisted. "You're choosing her again." Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'm choosing what's right." Lauren stared at him, then at Evelyn. Something dark passed through her expression. "If you move forward with this," she said quietly, "you'll open doors you can't close." Daniel held her gaze. "So will you." Lauren turned and walked away, her footsteps sharp, deliberate. When the door to the bedroom slammed upstairs, the house seemed to shudder. Evelyn sank back onto the step. "She won't stop," she said. Daniel knelt beside her. "Neither will I." He looked down at the folder again. There were more pages he hadn't read yet. Names. Dates. A second section clipped at the back. "What else is in here?" he asked. Evelyn's voice trembled. "The part where she tried to erase me completely." Daniel swallowed hard as he turned the page, and realized this wasn't just about guardianship. It was about ownership. And someone had already decided who they thought owned whom. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the folder spread open in front of him, reading each page slowly, deliberately, like speed might soften the truth if he rushed. It didn't. Every document felt heavier than the last. Property disclosures, asset drafts, a proposed trust structure, and Evelyn's name, listed not as family, not as guardian, not even as a dependent, listed as an occupant. Daniel pressed his fingers into his temples. Upstairs, Lauren moved occasionally. A door creaked. A drawer slammed. Each sound felt like punctuation in an argument that wasn't finished. Near 2 in the morning, Evelyn padded into the kitchen. She wore slippers and an old sweater Daniel remembered from years ago. She stopped when she saw him still awake. "You're going to make yourself sick," she said gently. He looked up. "How long did you know?" Evelyn took the chair across from him. "Long enough." Daniel slid one of the pages toward her. "This section here. The trust addendum. It treats you like a liability." Evelyn nodded. "She wanted to make sure that if anything happened to you, I'd be removed quickly." Quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" Evelyn folded her hands. "Because you were finally happy." He stared at her. "I was happy because I thought the people around me were honest." Evelyn looked down. Lauren wasn't always like this. Daniel let out a humorless breath. "That's what scares me." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Daniel flipped to the back of the folder. The clipped section Evelyn had warned him about. There were emails printed out, legal correspondence, and one document that made his stomach drop. A background report. Not on Evelyn. On Daniel. Lauren had commissioned it years earlier, shortly after they married. Daniel scanned the pages, disbelief creeping in. Financial projections. Behavioral assessments. Psychological risk notes written by a consultant who had never met him. "She evaluated me," he said slowly. Evelyn nodded. "She wanted to know how predictable you were." Daniel laughed softly, but there was no amusement in it. "She was planning around me." "Yes," Evelyn said. "Not with you." Daniel leaned back in his chair. The ceiling light hummed above them, too bright, too ordinary for the realization settling into his chest. "She never trusted me," he said. "She trusted your consistency," Evelyn replied. "And she feared anything that threatened it." Daniel thought about the way Lauren always managed the schedules, the finances, the social circles. How she gently redirected conversations whenever Evelyn spoke too long or shared old stories. It hadn't been kindness. It had been editing. At dawn, the house filled with pale light. Lauren came downstairs dressed sharply, like she was heading to a meeting instead of walking into the aftermath of a war. She froze when she saw them both at the table. "You're still at this?" she said. Daniel stood. "We need to talk." Lauren set her purse down with controlled precision. "I have calls." "They can wait," he replied. She crossed her arms. "Fine." Daniel held up the folder. "You ran a background check on me." Lauren didn't deny it. "That's normal." "No, it isn't," Daniel said. "Not like this." She shrugged. "I wanted to understand the man I married." "You wanted leverage." Lauren's eyes flashed. "I wanted security." Evelyn stood slowly. "You wanted control." Lauren turned to her sharply. "You don't get to psychoanalyze me." Evelyn's voice stayed calm. "You were afraid I could take Daniel away from you." Lauren scoffed. "You were already doing that." Daniel shook his head. "You isolated me." Lauren's lips parted slightly. "I supported you." "You managed me," Daniel corrected. Lauren's composure wavered. Just a crack. I built a life around you. And I built it around trust, Daniel said. Which you broke. Lauren exhaled sharply. If you push this, you'll make things public. Daniel didn't flinch. Maybe they should be. Lauren laughed, but it sounded strained. You think people will side with you? With her? Daniel met her gaze. I don't care. That answer landed harder than anything else. Lauren looked at Evelyn, then back at Daniel. You really don't see it, do you? See what? Daniel asked. Lauren's voice dropped. She didn't just raise you. She shaped you. She influenced your values, your loyalty, your guilt. Evelyn stiffened. Daniel's chest tightened. Watch your words. Lauren smiled thinly. She replaced your parents. And now she's replacing me. That's not how love works, Daniel said. Lauren's eyes hardened. That's exactly how power works. She picked up her purse and headed for the door. At the threshold she paused. You're walking into something you don't understand. Daniel replied evenly. Then I'll learn. The door closed behind her. Evelyn sank back into her chair. She's going to move fast now. Daniel nodded. So will I. He gathered the documents, his mind already racing. What Lauren didn't know, what she had underestimated, was that this folder wasn't just evidence of manipulation. It was evidence of planning. And if she had been planning for years, then somewhere out there she had already set something else in motion. Something Daniel hadn't uncovered yet. And whatever it was meant to finish what she started. By noon, Daniel's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls, voicemails, emails marked urgent. Lauren wasn't hiding anymore. He sat in his home office, jacket draped over the chair, staring at the screen as another message came in from Robert Klein. Daniel didn't open it right away. He already knew the tone it would take. Careful, measured, prepared. Across the room, Evelyn sat in the armchair by the window, reading an old paperback she'd brought from her room. She hadn't turned the page in a while. She's activating people, Evelyn said quietly. Daniel looked up. People? Attorneys don't move alone, she replied. Neither do spouses who are used to getting their way. Daniel opened Robert's email. Lauren had filed an emergency petition that morning. Temporary protective measures. Restrictions on Evelyn's access to certain areas of the house. A request for supervised interaction until a hearing could be scheduled. She's trying to separate us, Daniel said. Evelyn nodded. That was always the plan. His chest tightened. I won't allow it. Evelyn closed the book. You may not get a choice. The words landed heavier than Daniel expected. An hour later, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Two people stepped out. A woman with a tablet and a man carrying a slim briefcase. Daniel opened the door before they could knock. Daniel Foster? The woman asked. Yes. I'm Miss Thompson from Adult Protective Services. This is Mr. Green, legal counsel. Evelyn appeared behind him, calm but alert. We received a report, Miss Thompson continued, regarding potential elder neglect and undue influence. Daniel felt a flash of heat. By whom? Miss Thompson glanced at her tablet. A concerned family member. Lauren. They were allowed inside. The living room felt suddenly smaller, the walls closer. Miss Thompson asked questions. Straightforward at first. How long Evelyn had lived there. Whether she managed her own finances. Whether she felt safe. Evelyn answered each one carefully. Truthfully. Yes, I feel safe. Yes, I make my own decisions. Yes, I have access to my own money. Daniel watched Mr. Green's pen move across the page. Taking notes. Evaluating. Then Miss Thompson turned to Daniel. Mr. Foster, are you aware of any legal arrangements that grant you decision-making authority over Ms. Evelyn Carter? Daniel hesitated. No. Are you aware of any documents that suggest otherwise? Daniel swallowed. There were attempts. Mr. Green looked up. Attempts? Daniel exchanged a glance with Evelyn. There are documents that show my wife tried to initiate guardianship proceedings without my consent. Miss Thompson's brows furrowed. May we see them? Daniel retrieved the folder. As the pages were reviewed, the atmosphere shifted. The questions became sharper, more specific. Why was this background report commissioned? Miss Thompson asked. Evelyn answered before Daniel could. Because she didn't trust him. Mr. Green looked at Lauren's signature. This is serious. Miss Thompson closed her tablet. This changes the nature of the report. Daniel exhaled, but the relief was brief. There's another matter, Mr. Green said. Mrs. Foster has also requested a temporary injunction limiting Miss Carter's influence over Mr. Foster's financial decisions. Daniel laughed in disbelief. Influence? I'm a grown man. Mr. Green's expression didn't change. Courts don't always see it that way when assets are involved. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly. Daniel noticed. Is this what you wanted? He asked her softly. She shook her head. No. But I knew it might come. The visit ended without conclusions. Promises of follow-up. A hearing date to be scheduled. After they left, the house felt hollow. She's painting you as a victim, Daniel said. Evelyn nodded. And herself as the protector. Daniel's phone rang again. This time it was Lauren. He hesitated, then answered. You've embarrassed me, she said without greeting. You did that yourself, Daniel replied. You let government agencies into our home. You invited them, he said. Lauren's voice hardened. This doesn't end well for you. Daniel stared at the wall. Is that a threat? It's a warning. He hung up. Evelyn stood slowly. She's pushing for a public narrative. Daniel nodded. Then we control our own. He turned to his laptop, opening a new document. What are you doing? Evelyn asked. Documenting everything, Daniel said. Every conversation. Every paper trail. Evelyn watched him type. She'll try something else. Daniel's fingers paused. What? He asked. Evelyn looked toward the front door as if expecting someone else to walk in. She'll try to take something you can't get back. Daniel felt a chill run through him. What? He asked again. Evelyn's voice was barely above a whisper. Your name. And in that moment, Daniel realized this fight wasn't just about Evelyn's place in his home. It was about who the world believed he was. And Lauren was already rewriting that story. The article went live at 6:47 the next morning. Daniel saw it because Robert called him before the coffee finished brewing. Don't open anything yet, Robert said. Just listen. Daniel already had the browser open. The headline stared back at him in bold type, sitting at the top of a major business news site. Tech mogul faces private family turmoil amid elder care concerns. Daniel felt his pulse spike. They used my name, he said. They used just enough of it, Robert replied. No accusations. Just implications. Daniel clicked anyway. The language was careful. Anonymous sources. A wealthy executive. A longtime household elder. Questions raised. Authorities contacted. No conclusions drawn. But the damage was already done. Comments were pouring in. Speculation. Moral outrage. Amateur psychology. Evelyn stood in the doorway behind him, robe wrapped tightly around her. She didn't need to read it. She could feel the shift in the air. She did this, Daniel said. Evelyn nodded. She warned you. Daniel slammed the laptop shut. She's trying to poison perception. That's easier than proving facts, Evelyn said quietly. His phone buzzed again. This time it was the board chair. Daniel, the man said, voice tight. We need to talk. They met 2 hours later over video conference. Familiar faces filled the screen. People Daniel had built things with. People who had trusted him. At first the tone was supportive. Cautious but calm. Then the question started. Is there any risk exposure? Should we prepare a statement? Are you being manipulated? That one landed hardest. Daniel kept his voice steady. I am not being manipulated. One board member leaned forward. Perception matters. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. After the call ended, he sat very still. Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. For what? He asked. For being visible, she replied. Daniel turned to her. You're not the problem. She met his eyes. I know. But I'm the leverage. That afternoon, Lauren's attorney sent a formal letter. Not hostile. Not emotional. Strategic. It outlined concerns about Daniel's decision-making capacity under emotional stress, and requested an independent review to protect corporate stakeholders. Daniel laughed once, sharply. She's trying to sideline me. Evelyn sat across from him at the dining table. She's widening the frame. Robert joined them on speaker. She's creating a pattern, he said. Concern. 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 Until someone decides to intervene. Daniel rubbed his face. She's turning my own life into a case study. Robert paused. There's something else. Daniel straightened. What? Lauren's legal team submitted supplementary material with the injunction request. Evelyn stiffened. What material? Daniel asked. Robert hesitated. Personal correspondence. Old messages. Photos. Daniel's stomach dropped. Between who? Between you and Evelyn, Robert said. Evelyn's breath caught. What? Daniel stood abruptly. There's nothing inappropriate. I know, Robert said. But context can be manufactured. Daniel's mind raced. Old birthday cards. Thank you notes. Messages sent during college when Evelyn was the only adult who checked in on him. Lauren had kept them. She's reframing care as dependency, Daniel said. And dependency as influence, Robert replied. Evelyn pressed her lips together. I never imagined she'd go this far. Daniel turned to her. You did imagine it. You just hoped she wouldn't. Evelyn didn't deny it. By evening, Daniel's name was trending quietly in circles that mattered. Investors, commentators, people who didn't know him, but felt entitled to decide who he was. Lauren texted him just once. You can still stop this. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he drove to a small storage facility on the outskirts of town. He hadn't been there in years. The unit was registered under Evelyn's old address. Inside were boxes marked in careful handwriting. Taxes, letters, journals. This is everything I kept, Evelyn said softly beside him. Because I knew someday memory wouldn't be enough. Daniel opened one of the journals. Dates, entries, observations. Not emotional rants. Records, descriptions of conversations, decisions. Small moments Lauren had probably assumed were forgotten. Daniel flipped to a random page and froze. A detailed entry from years ago described a meeting Lauren had with an estate attorney. Not speculation. Not interpretation. Names. Times. Words quoted verbatim. Evelyn watched his face change. You wrote this down? Daniel asked. I wrote everything down, she said. Because when someone wants to rewrite you, details are the only defense. Daniel looked at her, a slow realization dawning. Lauren thought she was erasing Evelyn. But Evelyn had been documenting Lauren. And somewhere in these boxes wasn't just proof of manipulation. There was motive. And Daniel suddenly understood why Lauren had rushed to control the story. Because if Evelyn's record surfaced, the narrative wouldn't just collapse. It would reverse. And Lauren would no longer be the one asking questions. She would be the one answering them. They worked through the night. The storage unit smelled faintly of cardboard and dust, the air cool and still. Daniel and Evelyn sat on folding chairs beneath a bare bulb, surrounded by open boxes. Papers lay spread across a makeshift table, sorted into uneven stacks. Daniel moved carefully now. Methodically. Like a man dismantling a machine he had once trusted to run on its own. These are dated, he said, holding up a journal. Consistent. Cross-referenced. Evelyn nodded. I didn't write when I was emotional. I wrote when things were quiet. That's when people are honest. Daniel flipped through more pages. Patterns emerged. Repeated names. The same attorney appearing again and again. The same phrases Lauren had used publicly, mirrored years earlier in private conversations. She rehearsed this, Daniel said under his breath. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. She practiced being reasonable. At dawn, Daniel made a decision. We're not reacting anymore, he said. We're preparing. Evelyn studied him. For what? For the moment she overreaches, Daniel replied. By mid-morning, Robert was back on speakerphone, this time sounding sharper. More alert. This is significant, he said after reviewing scanned pages Daniel sent. These journals establish intent. Not just concern, strategy. Daniel leaned against the counter. Can we use them? Yes, Robert said. But timing matters. If we release everything at once, it looks defensive. Evelyn folded her hands. She'll force the timing. She always does, Daniel said. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. Daniel Foster? One asked. Yes. We need to speak with Ms. Evelyn Carter. Daniel's chest tightened. About what? A welfare check, the officer replied. Routine. Evelyn stepped forward calmly. I'm here. The officers entered. Polite, professional, but firm. Miss Carter, the second officer said, we've received a complaint alleging coercion and isolation. Daniel felt heat rise in his neck. This is harassment. We're just following procedure, the officer said evenly. They asked Evelyn questions. Simple ones. Where she slept. Whether she was allowed to leave the house. Whether she felt pressured to act against her will. Evelyn answered without hesitation. Without anger. No. 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 The officers exchanged a glance. We'll file our report, one said. Thank you for your cooperation. After they left, Evelyn sat down slowly. She's tightening the net, Daniel said. She's panicking, Evelyn corrected. People don't escalate like this unless something is slipping. That afternoon, Daniel's assistant called. There's an issue, she said carefully. Your name has been temporarily removed from tomorrow's keynote program. Daniel closed his eyes. Removed? Postponed, she corrected. Until things settle? Daniel hung up and stared at the wall. Evelyn watched him. She's taking your voice. For now, he said. Lauren called that evening. Daniel let it ring twice before answering. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she said. Daniel didn't raise his voice. You sent police to my house. I sent help, Lauren replied. People are worried. About what? He asked. That I won't do what you want anymore? Lauren laughed softly. You sound just like her. Daniel stiffened. Careful. She taught you how to feel guilty, Lauren continued. How to prioritize her needs over your own. Daniel's voice went cold. You're projecting. Lauren paused. Then, I'm trying to save you. From what? He asked. From losing everything, she said. Your reputation. Your company. Yourself. Daniel glanced at Evelyn, who was listening quietly from across the room. I already lost something, he said. My trust in you. Silence crackled on the line. Then Lauren spoke again, slower this time. You think those journals will protect you? Daniel didn't respond. I know about them, she continued. I always have. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. You think Evelyn was the only one keeping records? Lauren said. That's adorable. The line went dead. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. Evelyn looked at him. What did she say? Daniel swallowed. She knows about the journals. Evelyn's brow furrowed. That's impossible. She never saw them. Daniel shook his head. She didn't have to. A realization crept in, slow and sickening. Lauren hadn't just been preparing for Evelyn. She had been preparing for Daniel. And whatever records Lauren had been keeping, whatever version of events she'd been shaping, it was already in motion. Daniel looked at Evelyn, his voice low. "We're not the only ones with evidence." Evelyn's face paled slightly. Outside, a car engine started and idled for a moment longer than necessary. And for the first time, Daniel wondered if Lauren wasn't just fighting to control the story, but to end it on her terms. Daniel started noticing the patterns the next morning. It wasn't one big thing. It was a series of small, deliberate shifts. A meeting quietly canceled. An assistant suddenly reassigned. A vendor who had worked with him for years requesting clarification before proceeding. Lauren was pressing from every side. He stood at the kitchen counter scrolling through emails, jaw tight, coffee untouched. Evelyn sat nearby, folding laundry with slow, steady movements. "They're hesitating," Daniel said. "People who never hesitated before." Evelyn nodded. "Fear spreads faster than facts." Daniel exhaled. "She's already showing them her version of me." Evelyn looked up. "Then it's time you show them yours." By noon, Robert arrived in person. He carried a thin briefcase and the kind of expression that meant things had crossed into a new phase. "She's filed an amended motion," he said as soon as the door closed. "This time it's not just about Evelyn." Daniel leaned against the wall. "Let me guess. It's about me." Robert nodded. "She's requesting an independent psychological evaluation, framed as a precaution for corporate governance." Evelyn's hands stilled mid-fold. Daniel laughed once, sharply. "She's trying to declare me unfit." "Not declare," Robert corrected. "Question. That's all it takes." Daniel clenched his fists. "On what basis?" Robert opened the briefcase and slid out a document. "Emotional distress. Alleged impaired judgment. Excessive attachment to a non-family elder." Evelyn looked down. Daniel's voice dropped. "She's turning my care for you into pathology." Robert didn't deny it. "It's effective language." Silence settled heavily in the room. "She's building a case where I'm either unstable or manipulated," Daniel said. "Either way, I lose authority." "For now," Robert said. "Unless we counter it." Evelyn stood. "Then stop shielding me." Daniel turned sharply. "What?" "You've been protecting me like I'm fragile," Evelyn said. "That's what she's using." Daniel shook his head. "You shouldn't have to." "I want to," Evelyn interrupted gently. "I've been quiet long enough." She walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a slim binder Daniel hadn't noticed before. "I didn't just keep journals," she said. "I kept witnesses." She opened the binder. Inside were names, addresses, old emails printed out, affidavits signed years ago and never used. People who saw what she was doing, Evelyn said. People she assumed wouldn't matter. Daniel scanned the pages, stunned. Former staff. A financial advisor who'd resigned abruptly. A family friend Lauren had cut off after a disagreement. "This is a network," he said. Evelyn gave a faint smile. "It's a memory with backup." That afternoon Daniel made calls. Not defensive ones. Honest ones. He didn't argue. He didn't explain everything. He simply told people the truth piece by piece and let them decide what it meant. Some didn't respond. Others did. By evening, the house felt charged with motion again. Phones ringing. Emails arriving. Momentum shifting, slowly, cautiously. Then Daniel's assistant called, her voice tense. "She sent something to the board," she said. "A private packet." Daniel's chest tightened. "What's in it?" "I don't know," she replied. "But they've scheduled an emergency session. Without you." Daniel closed his eyes. "She's trying to move before we can," Evelyn said. Robert nodded. "If the board doubts his capacity even briefly, she gains leverage." Daniel paced the room. "What's her endgame?" Evelyn's voice was quiet but steady. "She wants to speak for you." The words settled in his bones. That night, Daniel finally slept, but only for an hour. He woke to the sound of a notification pinging over and over again. His phone lit up with alerts. A document had leaked. Screenshots were circulating online. Private messages. Edited. Cropped. Taken out of sequence. They painted a story of a powerful man spiraling. Dependent. Conflicted. Unreliable. Daniel sat up, heart pounding. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, already dressed. "She did it," Daniel said. Evelyn nodded grimly. She showed her hand. His phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel answered. "You should have stayed quiet," Lauren said calmly. "Now people are asking questions you won't like." Daniel's voice was low. "You leaked private messages." "You made them relevant," she replied. Daniel looked at Evelyn, then out the window where a news van was already pulling onto the street. "What do you want?" he asked. Lauren paused. "I want to finish this," she said. The line went dead. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. Outside, the world was waking up to a story it thought it understood. And inside the house, Daniel realized something with chilling clarity. Lauren wasn't trying to win an argument anymore. She was trying to force an ending. And whatever she had planned next wouldn't leave room for reconciliation. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, but it offered no warmth. The house felt different, tenser, almost clinical. Every sound, every shadow seemed charged with the weight of what had started the night before. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, the binder Evelyn had shown him in Chapter 16 open in front of him. Names, addresses, printed messages, notes, evidence of years of manipulation. It was formidable, and yet Daniel realized they still hadn't seen Lauren's full hand. Evelyn walked in carrying a tray of coffee. Her movements were deliberate, composed. She placed a cup in front of Daniel. "She's escalating," Daniel said, voice low. "This leak, she's trying to control the narrative before we can." Evelyn nodded, sitting across from him. "She's not just trying to control. She's trying to isolate. She's hoping we'll crumble under the pressure." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "The board meeting, if they even see her version first, she could gain leverage we can't undo." "Then we make sure they see ours first," Evelyn replied, her calmness almost frightening in its resolve. Daniel paused, looking at her. "Are you ready?" She met his gaze steadily. "I've been ready for years." By mid-morning, Daniel was on the phone with Robert. "She's requested a last-minute executive session," Daniel said. "Without notice to me. Without time to prepare." Robert's voice was measured. "Then we create our own timeline. We control the information. We reach the board before she can frame anything." Daniel nodded. "And if she tries to leak again?" Robert's tone hardened. "We document it. Immediately. Public and internal records. She can't manipulate facts if they exist outside her control." The next hours were a flurry. Daniel typed press releases for internal circulation. Evelyn cross-referenced documents, emails, and messages with meticulous precision. Phone calls were made. Evidence sent to Robert, scanned, filed, organized. Every step was strategic. Every move measured. By late afternoon, the board began to convene virtually. Daniel logged in first, Evelyn beside him. He noticed subtle shifts in the backgrounds of the board members, nervous gestures, quiet glances at phones, the slight furrow of a brow. Lauren was already speaking to some of them privately, he realized. Then the session began. Lauren started calmly, presenting herself as a concerned spouse worried about emotional stress affecting corporate decision-making. Her language was precise, persuasive, polished. Daniel felt the tension coil in his chest. But Evelyn leaned close and whispered, "Wait for your moment." And then it came. Robert guided Daniel through his presentation, concise, deliberate, exposing facts chronologically. The board saw dates, evidence, emails, even witness statements from Evelyn's contacts. all meticulously documented. Nothing was speculative. Nothing was opinion. Every word grounded in reality. Lauren's smile faltered. The polished veneer cracked subtly as Daniel and Evelyn moved the narrative from suspicion to evidence. "She underestimated you," Evelyn whispered. Daniel nodded but kept his focus. By the end of the session, the board's questions shifted. They no longer asked if Daniel was compromised. They asked how this situation had been allowed to escalate. How governance had been challenged by private conflict. Lauren's attempts to redirect, to charm, to intimidate failed. The documents were too precise, the evidence too thorough. After the session ended, Daniel closed his laptop. The tension in the room slowly ebbed. Evelyn exhaled softly, shoulders relaxing for the first time that day. Daniel looked at her. "We held the line." She smiled faintly. "We did more than that. We took the story away from her." But just as he began to feel a flicker of relief, Daniel's phone buzzed again. A known number. He answered cautiously. "Congratulations," Lauren's voice said, calm, almost approving. "You just survived one battle." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And the next?" "There's always a next," she replied. "And it's coming faster than you think." The line went dead. Daniel looked at Evelyn. "She's not finished." Evelyn's expression hardened. "No. But now she's on our terms." Outside, the sky had begun to darken with an unexpected storm. Rain pattered against the windows, a rhythmic warning. Inside, Daniel realized the fight for control, truth, and legacy was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. And somewhere deep in the house, a quiet thought lingered. Lauren had planned for every scenario, except the one where Evelyn was ready. The storm didn't pass overnight. Rain pressed against the windows in steady waves, like it was trying to wear the house down by persistence alone. Daniel stood in the living room before dawn, watching the dark sky lighten in uneven patches. His phone lay on the table behind him, silent for once. That silence felt temporary. Borrowed. Evelyn joined him, wrapped in a shawl, her face drawn but alert. "She hasn't responded since last night," Daniel said. Evelyn nodded. "That's intentional." He turned to her. "You think she's regrouping?" "I think she's deciding what she's willing to burn," Evelyn replied. The words settled heavily between them. By mid-morning, Robert called with an update. His voice was calm, but there was an edge underneath it. "She withdrew the amended motion," he said. "The one questioning your capacity." Daniel blinked. "Just like that?" "Yes," Robert replied. "Which means she's pivoting." Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. "She wouldn't retreat unless she had something else." Robert continued, "There's also a new filing. Different jurisdiction. Family court." Daniel's stomach dropped. "About what?" Robert paused. "She's contesting the validity of your informal caregiving arrangement with Evelyn, claiming it was never appropriate." Daniel laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "She lived here. For years." "That's the point," Robert said. "She's reframing proximity as impropriety." Evelyn stiffened. "She's implying something shameful." Daniel felt heat rush to his face. "That's disgusting." "It's also effective," Robert said quietly, "because it forces you to defend what should never have needed defending." After the call ended, Daniel paced the room. "She's dragging you through the mud to distract from her own actions." Evelyn sat slowly on the couch. "She's betting you'll protect me by staying quiet." Daniel stopped pacing. "I won't." Evelyn met his gaze. "You might have to choose how loud you're willing to be." That afternoon, Daniel made another decision. He requested a full, voluntary evaluation. Psychological, financial, personal. Robert raised an eyebrow over video. "That's bold." "It's honest," Daniel replied. "And it removes her leverage." Evelyn reached over and squeezed his hand. "She never expected that." "No," Daniel said. "She expected fear." By evening, Word began to spread quietly through the same channels Lauren had used. Daniel wasn't reacting anymore. He was opening doors, letting light in. Then came the knock. Not a doorbell. A knock. Firm. Official. Daniel opened the door to find a woman holding a folder, badge clipped to her coat. "Daniel Foster?" she asked. "Yes." "I'm with the court," she said. "I have papers for Ms. Evelyn Carter." Evelyn stood behind him, shoulders squared. "I'm here." The woman handed her the documents. "You've been named in a formal petition." Evelyn took them calmly. Too calmly. Daniel closed the door slowly. "What is it?" Evelyn scanned the first page, then the second. Her lips pressed together. "She's requesting an emergency injunction," Evelyn said. "Restraining me from residing here." Daniel's breath caught. "On what grounds?" Evelyn looked up. "Undue emotional influence. Conflict of interest. And," she hesitated, "financial exploitation." Daniel felt something cold and sharp twist in his chest. "That's a lie." "Yes," Evelyn said. "But it's one designed to humiliate." Daniel reached for the papers, but Evelyn held them closer to her chest. "No," she said gently. "This one is mine to answer." Daniel stared at her. "You shouldn't have to." Evelyn met his eyes. "I want to." That night, Evelyn asked to be alone in the study. Daniel hovered outside the door for a long time before finally giving her space. When she emerged an hour later, she was holding a single envelope. "I've been saving this," she said. Daniel frowned. "Saving what?" She handed it to him. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Addressed to Daniel, dated years ago, but never given to him. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Evelyn swallowed. The truth Lauren was most afraid of. Daniel unfolded the paper, his hands unsteady. The first line made his breath catch. "Daniel, if you're reading this, it means someone finally tried to take my voice away." He looked up at Evelyn, stunned. "What is this?" he whispered again. Evelyn's eyes shone, but her voice was steady. "It's the part of the story I never told you." Daniel looked back down at the letter and realized that whatever Lauren had planned next, whatever she thought she could still control, this letter was meant to survive all of it. And once he finished reading it, there would be no turning back. Daniel read the letter in silence, the paper trembling slightly in his hands. Every word, every sentence carried weight, more than any courtroom filing, more than any email or journal entry. It was raw, unfiltered, and terrifyingly honest. "Daniel, if you are reading this, it means someone finally tried to take my voice away." The words echoed in his mind. He realized immediately that this wasn't just a memory or a note. It was a blueprint, a record of a life lived in quiet vigilance. Evelyn had been documenting Lauren's manipulations for years, but this letter went further. It exposed intentions, motivations, and the moments Lauren had assumed no one else could ever know. Daniel swallowed hard. "She knew, she always knew," he murmured. Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. "And she trusted you to understand it," she said. "To act when the time came." Daniel's eyes moved down the page. The letter described how Lauren had attempted to isolate Evelyn subtly over the years, changing schedules, redirecting conversations, discrediting memories, and quietly framing Daniel's decisions as dependent on Evelyn's counsel. But what struck him most wasn't the manipulation. It was the care Evelyn had taken to shield him from it. Every recorded detail was intended to protect him, not punish him. "And she kept it hidden from you, all this time," Daniel said, voice low, disbelief and awe mingling. Evelyn nodded. "I knew it would be useful. But I also knew you had to be ready for it. And now you are." Daniel took a deep breath, folding the letter carefully. This is enough to dismantle everything Lauren's tried to build against us." "Yes," Evelyn replied. "But it has to be timed perfectly. One wrong move and she'll twist it into something else." Daniel felt a surge of resolve. "Then we don't hesitate. We act." They spent the next few hours strategizing. Every board member's known concerns, every potential legal loophole, every angle Lauren could exploit, they anticipated and countered it. Evelyn suggested small, subtle steps, releasing excerpts of her documentation to key advisors, confirming timelines and validating records. Daniel added personal testimony, careful phrasing, and public statements emphasizing facts over emotions. As night fell, Daniel felt a new kind of tension, not fear but anticipation. The storm outside mirrored the one that had raged in their lives, dark clouds pressing down, but lightning illuminating truths no one could deny. Then a knock at the door broke the moment. Daniel opened it to see Lauren standing there, calm but visibly braced. "Daniel," she said smoothly, "we need to talk." He studied her. No threats, no drama, yet. Just the confidence of someone who believed she had control. "Now?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Lauren replied. "Before things get messy." Evelyn stepped beside him, silent but present, a shield of quiet authority. Daniel nodded slowly. "Then let's talk." Lauren stepped into the foyer, and as the door closed behind her, Daniel realized something chillingly clear. This confrontation wasn't just about Evelyn, or even the documents. It was about who had the power to write the ending, and for the first time he understood that the balance was about to shift. And whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. Outside, rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drumming against the roof like a warning, and inside, the final act was about to unfold. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. Rain hammered against the windows, blurring the world outside. Inside, tension wrapped the rooms like a thick fog. Daniel, Evelyn, and Lauren faced each other in the living room, the three of them years of history and conflict distilled into one heavy, charged space. Lauren's posture was controlled. Her heels clicked faintly against the hardwood floor as she took a measured step forward. "I came to end this civilly," she said. Her eyes flicked briefly to Evelyn, then back to Daniel. "We don't have to make a spectacle." Daniel studied her, every nuance, every small movement. Years of manipulation hadn't gone unnoticed. "You think you're in control," he said evenly, "but you've underestimated how much truth can shift perception." Lauren's lips curved slightly, but it wasn't a smile. "Truth? You mean your little file of notes and letters?" Evelyn's voice cut through the tension, calm but firm. "Not little. Comprehensive. And honest." Lauren's gaze sharpened. "You think documenting private moments gives you power?" "It gives us clarity," Daniel said. "Clarity you've spent years trying to erase." The room went silent for a beat. Then Lauren moved closer, her voice quieter but sharp. "I won't be humiliated. Not in front of the board. Not in front of the media. Not in front of anyone." Daniel's fingers brushed the edge of the folder he had kept close. "Then it's your choice. Continue your strategy of manipulation or step back and let reality speak." Lauren's eyes flicked toward Evelyn, the woman she had tried to erase. Evelyn didn't flinch. Her hands were steady, her posture unwavering. "You really think your little documents can change perception?" Lauren asked. "You'll still have to defend every interaction. Every moment you've ever shared." Daniel shook his head. "We don't defend. We present facts." Lauren's chest rose and fell quickly. The first crack appeared in her composure. "You'll regret this," she said, but it lacked conviction. Daniel stepped closer. "I don't fear your threats anymore." Evelyn placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "She's already lost control," she said softly. Lauren's phone buzzed. She glanced down, irritation flashing. The distraction seemed to remind her that the world outside was still moving, still noticing. Daniel realized then that Lauren had gambled all these years on controlling perception, but now someone else, truth, was speaking louder than her narrative ever could. She exhaled sharply, looking between Daniel and Evelyn. For a moment, there was something almost human in her expression. Fear. Regret. Awareness. I underestimated you, she whispered. Daniel tilted his head, steady and composed. You still do. You think this is about winning. It's about honesty. And honesty doesn't need to be manipulated. Lauren stepped back, finally, her tension unraveling. Maybe this isn't over. It's over the moment you stop trying to rewrite history, Daniel said. You can step away or you can continue to lose in plain sight. Outside, the storm began to ease. Rain softened to a drizzle, sunlight breaking through the clouds in streaks that reflected on the wet pavement. Inside, the atmosphere shifted too, lightened though still charged with the aftermath of confrontation. Lauren's shoulders sagged. She didn't speak. She simply turned and left, the door closing softly but decisively behind her. Daniel exhaled, feeling the tension ease for the first time in weeks. Evelyn reached for his hand. It's done, she said. Not done forever, Daniel replied. But for now, yes. Done. They sat together in silence, listening to the rain, to the quiet hum of the house. No one spoke because words felt unnecessary. Years of fear, manipulation, and uncertainty had finally reached a turning point. Daniel glanced at Evelyn. You saved more than yourself, he said softly. She smiled faintly. We saved each other. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel realized the truth. Power wasn't in control, threats, or manipulation. Power was in courage, in honesty, and in standing together when the world tried to tear you apart. Outside, the sun finally broke fully through the clouds, reflecting off the wet streets. Inside, Daniel and Evelyn sat together, ready to face whatever came next, together. The story had ended, but their life, finally unburdened by secrets and deceit, was just beginning.